to my YouTube channel. I am going to do the booktube newbie tag and reintroduce myself. Before I jump into things, my name is Autumn. I'm 35 years old. I'm a Canadian stay-at-home mom and wife, and I of course love books and I love to read, and I am very excited to get started on this journey. I started this channel to talk about books. I love to talk about books. I love to talk, and this year one of my goals was to build more of a social media presence for my book vlogging, book experience, my reading journey. And I've been making videos on TikTok, but I find that I've been talking a lot, and TikTok doesn't really like longer videos. So I thought it was finally time to just start a booktube and see what I can do over here, build a community of other people who love to talk about books and watch videos talking about books, and just put myself out there. This is probably kind of cliche and kind of silly, but honestly, the unique thing that I bring to booktube is myself. Obviously, we all have our own unique opinions and tastes, and I think that I can bring that to booktube. I have a very eclectic taste in what I read. I read everything from fantasy and romance to thrillers to nonfiction. So I think that I can bring my own unique tastes. I also love to budget read, so anytime that I can read for free or for very cheap, I am all about that. I love to thrift. Almost 90% of my book collection is thrifted, so a lot of thrifted book hauls and information on how and where to get free or cheap books is definitely going to be part of my brand, and I think that that is a fun twist to booktube. I have loved reading since I was a little kid, and honestly, I can't quite put my finger on one reason why I love to read. It's just always been my favorite form of entertainment. When I was really young, I had a lot of free time to myself, spent by myself. For some reason, losing myself in a book was my favorite way to do it. I love getting to experience life through someone else's perspective, and I feel that fiction is such a great way to do that. It's a great way to develop empathy and compassion and understanding for other people, and I think that's really, really cool. I think that books is one of the few ways that you can do that in a real tangible way. I read for entertainment, I read for healing, I read for escapism, and it's just my favorite thing in the world to do. As I said, I have been reading since I was really young. So trying to pinpoint that one series that really got me into reading is difficult. I will say there are two that I can put my finger on. The Little House on the Prairie series. I loved Laura Ingalls my whole life growing up. I also loved Anne of Green Gables. I'm a Canadian girly at heart. Anne of Green Gables, her sense of wonder, her imagination just always spoke to me, and to this day I still love Anne of Green Gables. It's one of my favorite series. And any of those like classic period pieces are ones that really stick out to me. Pride and Prejudice to this day is my favorite book of all time. So really, period pieces were something that really got me into reading, and I still love them to this day. I think the number one question that I would ask anyone who does any type of bookish content is honestly like, how do you stop feeling like you're an imposter? How do you stop feeling like self-conscious or like nervous when you're filming? Because that's been my biggest struggle so far in this journey. I think this goes hand in hand with the last part. I think my biggest hurdle will be just finding the confidence to say things that I mean and to state my opinion as fact, to find the confidence to talk about the books that I love. I love this hobby. I love collecting books. I love reading them. I love just like looking at them. And I think that my biggest hurdle will just be talking to the camera and not feeling so self-conscious. But I think that part of the reason why I want to start this channel and part of the reason why I was so adamant about growing my social media presence this year is just to become more confident in that. I'm 35 years old. I'm at a place in my life where I want to put myself out there and just enjoy the things that I enjoy. I started reading way back when I was a little girl, at like about 5 or 6 years old. I started reading really early on. It was something that brought me comfort in my very young years when I was going through trauma, and it's just stuck with me. I did stop reading for a long time in my adult life, which I still am sad about. But life happened, I started having kids, and reading just kind of fell to the wayside. And I didn't realize how much I missed it until I started back up reading again in 2023. And since then, I have just been devouring books. And that's so exciting for me because reading was always such a big part of my childhood and even into my teens. And it's really sad that sometimes people lose those things that are important to them when they go into adulthood because they feel they're too busy. Prioritizing reading has been a life changer. Honestly, it's been life-saving to me. And I'm really, really excited to put more energy into this passion. I pretty much read everywhere, anywhere that I can get my hands on any type of reading material. I love to listen to audiobooks when I'm doing things around the house or when I'm working on my computer. I love to have my Kindle in my purse at all times. If I'm in the car and we're stopping for a couple minutes, my Kindle's out and I'm reading. And then when I'm lounging around the house while my kids or my husband are watching TV, I'll pull out a book and I'll start reading. I will read anywhere. Anywhere at any time. If I have the opportunity, if I have a little bit of downtime, a book is coming out in some way, shape, or form. I'm a very eclectic reader. I do tend to gravitate towards romance, contemporary romance, because I find it very easy to read, but I also love thrillers. So I would say romance and thrillers is kind of my sweet spot, but I will genuinely read any genre. I will read graphic novels. I will read historical fiction. I also do read nonfiction. I love celebrity memoirs. That's one of my favorite genres of nonfiction. True crime, a little bit of history, a little bit of educational stuff, but mostly I do stick to fiction. I also love the classics, so I'm kind of a little bit all over the place. I like to be a very eclectic reader. I don't like to limit myself to just one genre, and I love that I'm able to do that. I'm going to talk very quickly about some of my favorites. I'm going to kind of rapid fire through them so you can kind of get a feel of the types of books I'm reading and what really grabs my interest. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue is one of my favorite books that I've read since coming back into my reading journey. I just thought it was so beautifully written. I love the storyline, the underlying sort of like magic / fantasy threads in it. This is just beautiful and I adored it. I read this memoir by Roxane Gay last year, Hunger. It's also the only book that I have tabbed in my entire life. It was just so impactful and resonated with me so much. I loved it. This is definitely one of my top reads of last year. I read The Hunger Games back when they first came out. This series will stay with me. It is one of my favorites. I reread it last year at the end of the year before that. It's so good. It's so impactful, and I think it's even more relevant today than it was when it was written, and I love that about it. I am so excited for Haymitch's book coming out so very soon. I mentioned this earlier, Pride and Prejudice is one of my favorite books of all time. I love a classic. Great Expectations is another one of my favorite books, but I love classics and I love Jane Austen specifically. Any book by Frida McFadden is my go-to slump buster. If I'm in a slump, I pick up a Frida McFadden book. I've read 16 of her books as of right now, and I will not stop. If she puts something out, I am reading it almost immediately. I love Taylor Jenkins Reid, especially this universe with Daisy Jones, Carrie Soto, and this book, as well as The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. This one is my favorite by her. This is one of my favorite books. I love this sort of like historical fiction celebrity world that she put together. Diving into like spicy contemporary romance, Done and Dusted and The Blue Rebel Ranch is one of my favorite series. I actually just read Lost and Lassoed the other day. So good. I think that might be my favorite book in the series, but I remember picking this up. I read this book in like 2 hours. It was so good. I loved it. I will talk about this book anytime, all the time, whenever. And last but not least, I am an Emily Henry girly at heart. I love Emily Henry. Everything she writes is so good. She's so good at developing women who are discovering themselves and falling in love with themselves. Her books are never just a love story. I love love stories, but her books are always so much more than that, and I adore her for that. I love the way she writes banter. I love the way she writes women and understands women, and I will forever be an Emily Henry girly. And that's all about me and my bookish habits. I am so excited about this channel. I honestly don't know what the future is going to look like, but I am hoping to stay really consistent on here and grow a following, grow a community, talk to other people like you about the books that I'm reading, what I'm loving, what I'm not loving. And I'm very, very excited about this project. So please subscribe and join me and we can grow together.